Hello, it's Mrs. Leganke here again. For this review, I'm going to do one and then you're going to do one. So I will do number one. I will not do number two. For the first set, we're going to find the volume of each figure, show your work, and write your answer in terms of pi. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so our first figure is a cylinder. To find the volume of a cylinder, our formula is pi r squared h. Pi times the radius squared times the height. So first thing we do is look for the radius. The radius is half of the diameter. So it's from the center of the circle to the edge. So it's half of 22. Half of 22 is 11. So I'm going to substitute that in first. So V equals pi times 11 squared times the height of the cylinder, which is 7. Now to solve this in terms of pi, that means don't calculate the pi. Instead, I'm going to calculate everything else. So I'm going to do 11 times 11 times 7. 11 times 11 is 121, and 121 times 7 is 847. And then I just bring down the pi symbol, and I put it right next to it. That's it. Other than putting my label on here, this is kilometers to the third power, kilometers cubed. So in terms of pi, just don't calculate the pi and calculate everything else. Go ahead and try number 2. Next, we have a cone. The formula to find the volume of a cone is V equals pi r squared h, or you may have seen V equals pi r squared h, just find the volume of the cylinder and then divide that by 3. Okay, so I need the radius and the height, and in this one I do have the radius, which is half of the circle. So I'm going to substitute that in here. I'm going to try this second formula. I'm going to do pi 9 squared times the height of 18, and then I'm going to divide all that by 3. Again, we're going to do this in terms of pi. Remember, that means don't calculate the pi. Do everything else. So I'm going to do 9 times 9, which is 81, times 18, and then divide that all by 3. When I do all of that, 81 times 18, and then divide by 3, I get 486. And that is without calculating pi. So I just put the pi symbol there next to it, along with our label, which is yards cubed. Okay, so that is all for number 3. For number 4, when you do this one by yourself, they give you the diameter, so you'll have to cut that in half and use 5 for your radius. Moving on to number 5, now the directions change a little bit. It says find the approximate volume of each figure and round your answer to the nearest hundredths place this time. And we're going to use 3.14 for pi. As always, show your work. Okay, so a cylinder again. V equals pi r squared h. Again, it's always a very good idea to write your formula down and then substitute your numbers in. Okay, now in place of pi, it tells me to use 3.14. And then times the radius squared. Uh-oh, they did it again. I have the whole way across. I have the diameter, so I have to cut that in half. So my radius is 2, so it's 2 squared times the height of the cylinder, which is 7. Okay, and now we're going to calculate all of that. So I'm literally just typing that in my calculator. 3.14 times 2 times 2 times 7. Okay, so kind of lucked out because this is already in the hundredths place. I don't have to do any rounding whatsoever. Okay, so I'm just going to tack on my label here, make sure it's to the 3rd power, and that's it. Okay, you try number 6. Again, they gave you the diameter, so cut that diameter in half before you proceed into your formula. Okay, time for a cone. Okay, so we're going to do that cylinder formula and then divide it by 3 or do 1/3, whatever you're most comfortable with. I'm going to do pi r squared h, and then I'm going to divide that by 3. Okay, they did it again. They gave us the whole way across the circle. I just need half of that. So half of 22, or 22 divided by 2 is 11. And they told me to use 3.14 times pi. I'm going to do 11 squared for my radius, and the height is 22. And then after I calculate all of that, I divide it by 3 because it's a cone. It's 1/3 of the size. Okay, so I'm going to do 3.14 times 11 squared times 22 and divide by 3. Okay, and that all comes to 2,786.2266, whatever. So I do have to round on this one. I'm rounding to the hundredths place. So that's 2 places past the decimal. And then that 6 tells me I'm going to round that up. So then my final answer is 2,786.23, and it's meters cubed. Sorry, I ran off the page here. Okay, so don't forget on that one to divide that by 3 because it's a cone. And then you try number 8. And again, you're going to have to cut that radius, that diameter in half to get the radius. Good luck. Okay, now we're going to find a missing dimension, and we are going to use 3.14 for pi. Make sure we show all of our work. So the first thing I do is I recognize that it's a cone, and I write down the formula. So I'm going to do pi r squared h divided by 3. And now substitute in my values. Oh, this time they give me the volume. So where the V is, I do 225. And then I'm going to do 3.14 for pi. The radius, whoop, they did it again. I have to cut that in half. My radius is 5 squared. And the height is the unknown. So I just put the variable h. Okay, now I'm going to use inverse operations here. So first, I'm going to simplify everything. Oh, wait a minute. Don't forget I have to divide all this by 3. Let me put all that in there too. Divide by 3. Okay, so now I'm going to just do all of this math right here to simplify it. So I'm going to do 5 squared, which is 25, times 3.14, and divide that all by 3. Okay, so let me put that in my calculator first. Okay, so all of that came to 26, I'm going to have to round it, 26.17 H. Okay, and then now to get the variable by itself, I use inverse operations. So I'm going to divide both sides by 26.17 to get h by itself. Okay, so 225 divided by 26.17, and that leaves me with 8.59, or about 8.6 for our height. Okay, and that's reasonable, 8.6 here, looking at the dimensions that I have. All right, you go ahead and try volume of the cone. You're going to do the same thing. Make sure you split that diameter in half and get the radius. Okay, we've got 2 more to go. I'm going to go ahead and do number 11 with the cylinder-shaped flower vase, and then you'll do number 12. Okay, for this one we have a cylinder-shaped flower vase that has a height of 9, and we already know what the volume is. So we're going to work backwards on this one and find the radius. It does say to sketch a picture of the vase and label it with the height. Remember, when we've drawn our vases before, or cylinders before, we do 2 little ovals and connect them. And then I'm going to label it with the height. Okay, it looks like our height is 9. So H is 9 inches. And then we know the volume is 144 pi. So that's in terms of pi. So I don't have to be calculating the pi on this one. Okay, so let's write our formula down. We know for a cylinder is pi r squared h. And now let's substitute in the values that we know. So we know 144 pi is our volume. And then I'm going to write the rest of my formula here. So pi. I don't know what the radius is, so I'm going to go r squared. And then, of course, I know that the height is 9. Okay. So let's simplify over here. So 9 and pi is over here. So I'm going to go 144 pi equals 9 pi times r squared. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by 9 pi to get r by itself. So pi is gone, and I'm going to do in my calculator 144 divided by 9, which comes out to a nice 16 for r squared. Okay, one more step here. So now my r squared is 16. That means what number times itself is 16? And I know in my head that 4 times 4 is 16. So my radius is going to be 4. That's also called getting the square root. I don't know if you've seen the square root of that. But r squared means the same number times itself. And 4 times 4 is 16. So for this one, in this vase here, the radius is 4. And that would be inches. Okay, good luck with the rest of your review. Make sure, my biggest tip is to write down all the formulas for each problem and substitute in. Okay, let us know if you need any assistance.